What is going on, everybody? Today we are checking out the Crazy Tube Circuits Unobtainium Raw. It's called the Unobtainium because it covers 3 highly sought after, pretty darn unobtainable items. One being the Klon. Now, if you want to go get an all original gold or silver Klon, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. They're pretty unobtainable. On the other side of the pedal, it covers 2 different highly sought after, very unobtainable amplifiers, the Dumble Overdrive Special and the Dumble Steel String Singer. So it's a dual overdrive pedal. On the right side is a Klon. On the left side, it's the amp side, allows you to choose between a Dumble Overdrive Special or a Steel String Singer. There are some enhancements that are different than the original Unobtainium. I'll get into that in a second, but I'll let you know what's going on with this pedal specifically. On the Klon side, you can choose between the stock germanium diodes, which are part of that highly sought after Klon circuit. This is a really faithful recreation of that. But in addition to that, you can choose to use germanium transistor for clipping. And specifically the Mollard OC45, I think it's the Valvo, labeled new old stock transistors, germanium transistors, which I don't think's ever been done in an original Klon circuit. It's a very cool sound, and we'll get into how it sounds in the demo, but it allows for just something different within the parameters of a Klon circuit. It's a very, very, very cool thing. That's what's going on that side. We'll get into all the controls in just a second. On the left side of the pedal, the amp side of the pedal, as I mentioned, you can choose between an overdrive special circuit, which is going to be kind of fatter in the low mids. It's going to be a little bit more compressed, or the Steel String Singer circuit, which is going to be not quite as fat in the low mids, but it's going to have a little bit more headroom and a little bit more clarity. We'll get into how all that sounds. Now, if you want to know the difference between the Unobtainium Raw and the Unobtainium, as far as I know, the Unobtainium is not being replaced by the Unobtainium Raw. They're just different circuits. So the main deal on the Klon side is in the original Unobtainium, you had stock and then what was called mod. And I believe in the stock setting, it was the original germanium diode clipping. If you threw it to the mod, then it added silicon diode clipping as well.
I could have, maybe that's reversed, but it was essentially adding, you could have both germanium and silicon in the mod setting, which would give it more gain and just a kind of a different, more compressed feel. That's the difference on the Klon side. So old one, germanium and silicon diode, either added or by itself. On this one, you can choose between this germanium diode clipping or the OC45 transistor, which germanium transistor, which sounds really great. On the other side of the pedal, there hasn't been any like clipping changes. It's more in how it's voiced. The raw is going to be a little bit brighter. It's going to have a little bit more clarity. It's going to be a little bit more forward sounding, whereas the original unobtainium is going to be a little bit warmer, a little bit fatter. So think of it as like, if you're familiar with like a Dumble overdrive, there's a jazz rock switch. This is the rock switch. The unobtainium is the jazz switch. So that's the difference between the two pedals. I hope that makes sense. I probably just totally confused you, but go to the website. You can go through it. Okay, on the right side of the pedal, here's what's on it. You have gain, volume, and treble. We know what that all does. We'll listen to it in the demo. As I mentioned, on the right side of the pedal, there's a switch that allows you to choose between the stock clipping and the new transistor clipping. We'll get into that in the demo. On the left side is a buffer true bypass switch. It's there in case you're running like long cable runs. If you need it, really handy. It's great to be able to turn that off because you can't do that on an original Klon. On the left side of the pedal, the amp side of the pedal, you can choose between overdrive special or the steel string singer by throwing that switch. You have volume, gain, tone, and emphasis. Those are really cool the way they are placed in the circuit and how they sound. We'll get into that in the demo for sure. They react really, really well with each other. On the side of the pedal, you have an external input jack for switching between the ODS and the SSS circuit. Very, very nice feature. On the top of the pedal, you have your in and out, but you also have a send and return. So if you want to put something like an effect between the two circuits, you can, but you can also split those two circuits out. If you have like a pedal board or channel switching and you want the circuits to be in different places, you can employ that, which is another very, very cool feature. On the inside of the pedal are a couple of internal potentiometers, little mini potentiometers to tweak things. I left those stock. One is for the overdrive special circuit. If you crank that up, it adds boost and gain, but think of it as you can make it sound more ampy. It's like driving an amp type of deal. There's another potentiometer that allows you to adjust the lows within the steel string singer circuit. As I mentioned, I left that alone. Soft touch switches, which I really dig, really high quality relays. You can run them both together or independently of each other. Let's check out the Crazy Tube Circuit's Unobtainium Raw. All right, let's check this thing out. Here's just the guitar into the amp. And here is the Unobtainium Raw. All right, my usual mindless spaghetti. Just to give you an idea between the two sides of this pedal, how it sounds. Let's do this. Let's go back to the Klon side of the pedal and check that out. In the stock position, it's going to be the stock germanium diodes, and it sounds great. It does pretty much what I expect a great sounding Klon circuit to do. With the gain all the way off, you can use it as kind of an always on thing if you want. You can start adding a little bit of gain. And of course, if you want more gain, you can dime it. Still cleans up pretty good. So that's in the stock germanium diode setting. If we go to germanium transistor, it's actually pretty subtle unless you've got the gain almost all the way up or all the way up in this case. You'll hear it. If it's down a bit, it's really subtle. I don't think you would catch it. To my ears, it's a different kind of clipping. I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as higher gain, but the way it saturates is a little bit more. It feels a little softer to me. So I'm just going to leave the gain all the way up and throw the switch. Throw the switch, Igor. It's cool. I mean, I really like the stock setting. The OC45 setting is great as well. It's a completely different feel, and honestly, it sounds different than a Klon would. It feels different than a Klon would. So I think that's a really nice feature just to have, especially when you're running higher gain. Maybe you just want a different feel, but That's what that's doing. So we know what the gain range is on it. We know what the volume does. I'll sweep the treble. I like it about right there. And of course, buffered true bypass, you can choose between the two. I've got it in true right now. If I throw it to buffered, you're not going to hear anything. But it is really handy if you're running long cable runs, all that stuff. You guys know how that works. So that's what's happening on the Klon side. Let's try the OD and SSS side, which is the Dumble amps. I'll start in the overdrive circuit and let you hear that. I'll just kind of sweep things. We'll start with the gain. Gain all the way up. And this is in the OD setting, and I'll get into the differences. So with it all the way off, it still passes signal. Halfway up. Kind of the classic thing. 3/4 way up. All the way up. Now in the OD setting, it's got more kind of fatter lows, fatter mids overall. I'm just going to throw it to the Steel String Singer SSS setting with the gain all the way up, and you should be able to hear what's going on. In that SSS setting, there's less mids. Feels like it has a little more headroom, and it's a little bit more toppy. I used that setting when I did the real clean stuff or ish stuff. Yeah. Because I really love the tops on it, but I used the OD setting for all the solos because it was fatter. So that's what's going on between the two. OD fatter, SSS is going to be a little, like I said, a little bit more headroom, a little more toppy, and it'll have a little bit more clarity. It's nice to be able to toggle between the two via switch. God, I can't talk today. Foot switch. You have an external jack right there, so you could toggle between the two, and there's enough of a difference that you, in my case, I would want a solo on the OD and then do all my rhythm stuff on the SSS setting. So I'm going to leave it, well, I'll leave it in the SS. We know what the gain does. Let's look at the emphasis. Now this, I believe, is post-clipping or post-overdrive, and I'll just let you hear it. So that's off. Midway up. Here, I'll pick the whole time. Midway up. All the way up. I really like this, especially getting it to sit in a track. It just brings out more pick articulation. There's more upper mids as well as highs. It's a really nice feature or control and I really appreciated it when I went between Steel String Singer and the OD. Should say ODS, but you guys know what I mean. Because this brings in more of those lows. And in this case, what I didn't mention is the emphasis can also bring in some lows. But in the ODS setting, I was able to kind of dial that in. So in the ODS setting, it's more apparent the lows that it brings in. So I was able to bring that back a little bit. and then just add tone, or in this case, treble. So that's a really nice setting, and it interacts nicely between the two. I'm going to go back to the SSS setting. I'll just sweep the tone for you, which is actually, as I mentioned, the emphasis is, man, post, overdrive. The tone is pre, so tone all the way off. Midway up. All the way up. So yeah, between these two controls interacting with each other, pre and post overdrive, you can get all kinds of tones. Really, really versatile. We know what the volume control does. You push the amp harder, so if you want to hit the amp, you can hit the amp a lot harder. There's a good amount of volume there. So last but not least, let's do the two channels together. So what I'm going to do is it's Klon into Dumble. I will do, let me dial this for kind of a lower gain thing. And then I'll dial this. I'll start with lower gain. Let's see what it does. So they do run into each other quite nicely. So that is the Unobtainium Raw by Crazy Tube Circuits. If you got any questions about it, definitely go to the website, because I didn't build it. I just tried to demo it so you guys can hear it. And as always, I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you on the next one.